The operating environment. Last week we discussed economic sustainability of the aviation industry. We considered the economic challenges facing the industry and considered the profitability both in aggregate and in the various regions. We discussed competition between airlines and alliances within the industry and also competition with other modes of transportation like railways and road transportation. There's also the emerging challenge of teleconferencing, which has been feared that could replace much of business travel. In this week, we continue discussing the challenges in the industry and consider the operating environment. The aviation industry is regulated by a plethora of international and regional conventions and treaties. These have the net effect of distorting the operation of the industry by fragmenting and splintering it into sometimes non-viable and small segments. Many countries jealously guard their airspace and restrict free operations to foreign airlines. These restrictions are the result of the International Air Services Transport Agreement and the International Air Transport Agreement of 1945, which were signed together with the Chicago Convention at the very inception of international civil aviation. We shall consider the effect of these treaties on the ease of operations. The material in this week is divided into 3 lessons. Lessons 1, 2, and 3 have a duration of 60 minutes each. In week 1, lesson 1, we shall look at the international conventions and treaties governing aviation. There is a wide body of international private law, air law, which extends right from the Paris Convention of 1919, going right up to the Paris Conference of 1925, the Warsaw Convention of 1929, Rome Convention of 1933, the Brussels Conference of 1938, and which all led up to the Chicago Convention of 1945. We shall look at the conventions, especially from the time of the Chicago Convention of 1944, the International Air Services Transit Agreement of 1944, and the International Air Transport Agreement of 1945. Lesson 2 is concerned with bilateral agreements. Bilateral agreements date back to the Bermuda I Agreement of 1946, which was a precursor to the several air service agreements which have since been signed. There is also the Bermuda II Agreement of 1977, which was more restrictive. We shall consider the various agreements and consider the second generation or the so-called open skies agreements, and the third generation, which goes beyond the open skies agreements. In lesson 3, we shall look at some of the important regional agreements. We shall mainly focus on agreements within our local region, specifically in Africa. Some of the more important agreements in this region are the Yamoussoukro Declaration, which was made in October 1988, which led on to the Yamoussoukro Decision, and which has now been implemented in the single African air transport market.